Hello again, Dr. Welgan here. I'd like to mention, once again, I'm a clinical psychologist, psychophysiologist, and research psychologist. We're interested in the topic today of habits. This is the third in the series of my presentations on habits, and what I would like to discuss today is what I left off with yesterday, and that is how we learn. Okay? I think it's very important. For those of you who were with me yesterday, I had all kinds of lines over here. I've erased them. Okay, we're going to start pretty much over again, describing the acquisition of a learned behavior, a habit, and the extinction of a habit. Okay, how it drops out of your behavioral repertoire, how the habit is broken. Okay, couple things to keep in mind here. We're talking about a behavior that is actually learned, that follows basic principles of learning, laws of learning, and I would like to illustrate for you one of the most important, powerful laws and principles of learning. We discovered actually long before I was in the business, and that was in the early part of the century, okay? And it's called instrumental learning, and it is also called operant conditioning. Okay, so what does that mean? Those of you who have had an intro course to psych, you probably recognize a very poorly illustrated Skinner box. Pigeon, food delivery tray, the food delivery system. How do you shape behavior? A randomly operating pigeon in that box walks around and accidentally hits that little target. The pellet comes out, and he learns. Oh, and he learns what? That if I do this over and over and over again, a pellet will come out, and I will have something to eat. Okay, so food is a reinforcer here for the pigeon. It isn't long before this random behavior of this animal disappears entirely, and he spends a good deal of time just hitting that, eating, hitting that, and eating. So that behavioral pattern now is a learned behavior as a function of the positive reinforcement of that pecking behavior. Not just the pecking behavior, but the movement from this corner over here. That whole sequence is a learned sequence followed by reinforcement. So it's just not hitting that. It is everything else that this animal is doing efficiently now to eat. From here to here, hit it, stand there, hit it. I don't have to walk anymore, I just stand there and hit it. That is all reinforced as a function of the number of times he does that. So every time he does it, he gets a food pellet. That is called 100% reinforcement. Every time he hits it, he is positively rewarded. It's a positive reinforcement for that animal. By the way, why are we using animals? Because they learn the same way we do. Rats, pigeons, chimpanzees, rhesus monkeys, you name it. From amoebas to Homo sapiens. The underlying principles of learning here are really interesting. They tend to be uniform, okay? So we use animals because they're cheaper, if you will. They're easier to work with than human beings for the most part. But nevertheless, we follow the same laws of learning. So we get something like this. The strength of the habit, as I mentioned yesterday, is here, and the number of times that individual performs it and is reinforced for it is something like this, about 100. Remember, this is 100% reinforcement. Every time he hits that target, the strength of that behavior increases. Okay, so we get a very strong behavior, habit, repetitive behavioral pattern. Okay, that's 100%. What if we do this? We, first of all, give them 100% to begin with, and then we shift it pretty early on to every other time. So we get this kind of a thing. 50%. Half the time he gets reinforced when he hits that. The other half he doesn't, okay? He hits that more to get a pellet, more times, twice as many times as this guy does, but he continues to do it. How about this guy here, where we do this? We change it and make it what would appear to be random to the animal, but it is a 3-to-7 ratio. 3-to-7. Sometimes he gets reinforced every third time, sometimes every seventh time. 6, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way through that range, okay? So you don't know when he's going to get us, but he continues to peck because eventually he is going to be rewarded, okay? So what happens here? We get this kind of a thing. No, okay? All learned behavior. Now, if we decide we want to break that habit and remove the reinforcer, the food, entirely, no matter how long he pecks at that target, nothing happens. Okay? How long does he stand there and try to produce some food? Okay, for the 100%er, no. If nothing's coming out, I ain't hanging around because I'm used to it coming out all the time, okay? So that persistent, attentive behavior in that animal begins to extinguish. It begins to walk around the Skinner box again, randomly, okay? Every once in a while, I'll come back and hit it, see if it works, you know, like a slot machine in Vegas, okay? This guy here, at 50%, does this. He'll stay there longer because he is used to having to wait. But what will happen? Okay, no matter how long I stay there, nothing happens and it drops off. This guy doesn't drop off. That behavior maintains for long periods of time, depending upon that ratio. 5 to 100, 2 to 300, and everything in between. You're actually going to get a behavior virtually can't break. It is so resistant to weakening. That behavior right there will maintain, and that animal will just sort of live right there next to that delivery tray, okay? And most of the time he's not getting any reinforcement at all, but he continues to do it, okay? So resistance to extinction, another word for us is breaking a habit, is really difficult in a partial reinforcement schedule. And we all are engaging in that throughout our entire lives. Our reinforcement schedules are more like this than they are this or this. They tend to be variable. We should keep that in mind. Because when I go back and talk about obesity, that's the reason why you can't break that habit in obesity. They continue to return to eat in the old ways they used to when you put them back in that environment. Remember, early on, 97% of people who enter weight management and weight reduction programs fail for that reason. And nobody can figure out why. I mean, I got to ask my buddies in experimental labs to explain to them why they can't break those old habits and why they can't shape new ones. Because most of your practitioners, in my opinion, don't know much about that, okay? Anyway, we'll get back to that as I use obesity as an example of that. And that's coming up, okay? We're going to go back to obesity because I'm interested in that. and demonstrate the persistence of habits and the enigma throughout the entire industry of the inability to break what is called waste cycling or recidivism, a return to the old habit patterns. Okay? I haven't figured that one out yet, at least in the literature I've been reading. Okay. Okay. So much for this model of conditioning and learning. I want you to tune in with me tomorrow, because I'm going to be talking to you about there are different ways to positively reinforce, to change behavior, okay? And I want to talk to you about just a couple of them tomorrow. So tune in, will you? And we'll pick this up. Okay. Look forward to talking with you tomorrow.